Once upon a time, in a small, forgotten town surrounded by deep forests and winding roads, there was a chilling legend about an abandoned truck that sat on the outskirts of the town. It was a rusty old freight truck, its paint peeling and its tires flat, and it hadn't moved in years. Locals whispered that it was cursed, and brave souls who had ventured too close often returned with unsettling tales. One foggy evening, a group of friends, Sarah, Jake, Lily, and Mark, decided to test their courage. They had heard the stories around the campfire, but this time they were determined to unravel the mystery behind the old truck. Armed with flashlights and an air of bravado, they set out toward the eerie destination. As they walked down the deserted road, the atmosphere became denser, and the trees seemed to close in around them. The chill in the air wasn't just from the fading daylight, it felt as if they were being watched. Jake, trying to lighten the mood, joked about ghosts and ghouls, but even he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that crept over them. After what felt like an eternity, they finally arrived at the fateful spot. The truck loomed before them, its shape silhouetted against the dimming sky. Broken glass crunched underfoot as they approached, and the smell of rust and old oil filled their nostrils. The vehicle was covered in a thick layer of dust, and its windows were grimy and opaque. "Let's see what's inside," Mark suggested, stepping forward with a hint of mischief in his eyes. The others hesitated, but curiosity got the better of them. They gathered their courage and climbed onto the truck's side, peering through the shattered window. Inside, the cabin was a time capsule of neglect. Old newspapers littered the floor, and a thick layer of dust covered everything. As they poked around, they found personal items, a faded photograph of a family, a child's toy, and a half-burnt candle. It was eerily quiet, broken only by the sound of wind rustling through the trees. Suddenly, they heard the distant sound of a horn. "Did you hear that?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. "It's probably just a car in the distance," Jake replied dismissively. But deep down, they all felt it, an unsettling presence that seemed to grow stronger around them. Just then, the air grew colder, and the lights of their flashlights began to flicker. "This is definitely not right," Mark said, glancing nervously at his friends. They all felt it, a heavy weight in the atmosphere, as if something was ready to reveal itself. As they stepped back away from the truck, something moved, a shadow shifting just beyond the truck's edge. They strained their eyes to see, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Panic surged through them, and they began to discuss leaving. However, Sarah, the bravest among them, scoffed at their fear. "It's just an old truck. Nothing can hurt us." Compelled by a mix of fear and bravado, they split up to explore. Jake and Lily stayed together while Mark and Sarah ventured closer to the driver's seat. As Sarah leaned in to examine a cracked dashboard, she felt an icy rush of air pass through her, freezing her blood. "Did you feel that?" she shouted, glancing back at Mark, who looked pale. Meanwhile, Jake and Lily were investigating the back of the truck. The door creaked open, revealing a dark interior. As Jake shone his flashlight inside, they were met with a sight that froze them in place. The back of the truck was filled with old, decaying supplies and a large, dusty mirror that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the mirror, a ghostly woman, her eyes hollow and sorrowful. "Help me," she whispered, her voice echoing unnervingly inside the truck. To their horror, the reflection didn't match the physical space behind them. The mirror showed the woman standing in the back of the truck, when, in reality, it was just old crates. Fear gripped Jake and Lily, and they stumbled backward, colliding with the wooden crates. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the night, amplifying their panic. "We need to get out of here," Jake yelled, and they dashed back toward the front of the truck. Meanwhile, Mark and Sarah were trying to shake off the unsettling feeling that had surrounded them. Suddenly, they heard the sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching. "Do you hear that?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark nodded, his heart racing as they both turned to face the source of the sound. Terror struck as they saw a shadow rise from inside the cabin. It took a human shape, but its features were obscured by darkness, and its eyes gleamed with malice. "You shouldn't have come here," it growled, low and menacing. At that moment, all four friends screamed in unison as they ran toward each other, desperate to escape whatever haunted the truck. The group reunited, panting, and quickly recounted their horrors. "There's something in there," Lily cried. "A ghost." They didn't hesitate. Fear took control, pushing them to dash down the road, stumbling in their haste. The haunting laugh of the specter followed them, a chilling echo that sent shivers down their spines. They finally reached the edge of town, collapsing against a lamppost, breathless and shaken. As they caught their breath and exchanged terrified glances, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone in the woods. Days turned into weeks, and the friends tried to move on from that night. However, they often found themselves checking mirrors, half terrified that the ghostly woman would appear again. They spoke to townsfolk about their experience. Many nodded knowingly, their faces grim. They heard tales of a family that had vanished years ago, their spirits doomed to wander the old truck and seek help that would never come. Eventually, the friends swore never to speak of that night again. But one fateful evening, while gathering for a barbecue, they found their playful atmosphere dimmed by a sudden chill. Just outside the patio door, where shadows danced under the moonlight, stood the figure they thought they had escaped. The ghostly woman, her eyes sorrowful and pleading. The friends knew then that some stories never leave you. They linger, waiting for the moment you least expect, ready to remind you of the darkness that dwells just beyond the light. And that's how they learned that sometimes the ghosts of the past find ways to reach out, reminding the living that they are never truly alone, especially when it comes to the mysteries of the abandoned.